Hello, welcome to Casual Veteran Gamer. In the video today, I'm going to be looking at 3 builds, all in the same video, because in my last video, 3 people added a build that used Flameblade. I want to say thank you to MrPatrick, Inno and Marc Rainbow for sending these in, and all managing to choose the same video to give me the same build, but 3 different variants, 3 different classes. So, let's get into it. The first of our Flameblade builds is going to be a High Elf. Pick a cantrip. They suggested maybe Acid Splash. Class Wizard. As for cantrips, we want to pick cantrips that we don't find early on. So we find Firebolt on the very first room pretty much. So I won't pick Firebolt. We find Shock and Grasp early enough. They suggested maybe Rare Frost and Blade Ward. And I'll take Friends. They didn't suggest that, but it's just a good one to have. Same idea for spells. We don't want to take spells that we find relatively easily. We find Burning Hand many times, Mage Armor many times. We can find Magic Missile, but not so quickly, and that's a really powerful spell. I want that one. These are fine choices here. They suggested Find Familiar. I guess we can do that. We don't often find Long Strider or Jump either on the scrolls. For abilities, we're going to dump Strength and Wisdom. We're going to have 16 in Dexterity and Intelligence, Constitution at 14, Charisma at 12. And then for skills, go for skills where we can make up for our dumped stats. So Wisdom, the others, not much choice. Let's go for Arcana. Their backgrounds, they didn't put much emphasis on this, so whatever you want. Maybe go for Charisma-based skills, or Dexterity, maybe. Athletics and Survival, let's do that. For the second build, I am under fairly strict orders about what to choose. This is a soldier background. The race is Asmodeus Tiefling. The appearance, something that makes you think of fire or maybe death. A bit scary. Class is Warlock. Subclass the Fiends, Cantrips, Friends and Eldritch Blast. With Burning Hands and Hex. For the skills, pick Deception and Investigation. And the abilities, we're putting Charisma up to 17 because we will be using Volo's Ersatz Eye. The third build is a Druid. For race, I picked Gold Dwarf, as was suggested, for Constitution and Wisdom. Just chose this appearance. Class Druid. The one cantrip we must get, we have been told, is Shillelagh. I also picked up Guidance. For skills, I picked Animal Handling and Perception. They weren't too fussy about the skills. And for abilities, Wisdom and Constitution at 16, Dexterity at 14, Strength at 12, then we can dump Intelligence and Charisma. At level 2, for the Wizard, we get to choose our subclass. We're going to go with Abjuration School because we want to have Arcane Ward. For your spells, again, I'm going to try and pick spells that we can't easily get from scrolls. I'm going to pick Featherfall. We can get this from scrolls, but I can't think of anywhere we get it really early, and I want to have it just in case. And it's also why I'm going to pick Jump. At level 2, for the Warlock, we're picking up Agonizing Blast and Repelling Blast, and then Armor of Agathis. At level 2, for the Druid, the only option is what circle you're going to pick for your subclass, and I picked Circle of the Land. So we get an extra cantrip, I picked Thorn Whip, and the reason for Circle of the Land is we get this natural recovery, which would help us cast Flameblade more times per long rest, and also there will be a good choice of land. Actually, that goes very well with this build. At level 3, we're going to continue picking spells for the Wizard. I would suggest Mirror Image is a good spell to have if we're going in melee. And then maybe Misty Step, maybe Shatter. Both of those do come from scrolls. We can get Blur easily enough. We can get most of these spells actually from scrolls. Actually, I'm going to go with Shatter. At level 3 for the Warlock, we're going to pick Scorching Ray. It's insanely important. And we get Hellish Rebuke from being a Tiefling. And as a consequence, I'm going to replace Hellish Rebuke with Burning Hands. At level 3 for the Druid, we get to pick a Circle of the Land, and I would pick Circle of the Coast because we get Mirror Image, which will help us in melee range, and Misty Step is a great spell for moving around the battlefield. The prepared spells can be changed later. Each time you long rest, the scrolls get reset, so you will be having to come back and buy any scrolls of Flameblade that you find for the Warlock in particular. You'll need one for the Wizard to learn, but then the Warlock is going to be using these consumables. So I will be buying as many Flameblade scrolls as I can get my hands on. You can, of course, take the less moral route and go pickpocketing and get any scrolls that you want. Okay, I've already bought the Scroll of Flameblade, but this is an alternative. In the event that you weren't aware, there is a shortcut to the Risen Road from the Druid Grove as long as you have somebody with Misty Step. What you want to do is go up above Zevlor's little alcove there. I'm going to just use Jump to make this a bit quicker. And I just like jumping around the place when I've got the jump spell. It is a bit quicker to get around also. So this is on my druid. So we get up to this position. It even says the Risen Road. And then with Misty Step, there's a spot just down here that you can teleport to. I'm going to go and pick up the waypoint just by the Paladins of Tyr. And then I'm going to go to Walkeen's Rest. Also, don't forget to pick up the ring that gives you extra sleight of hand and stealth, but -1 charisma.
Another step forward.
If you want to at this point, you can go speak to Karlach and the Paladins of Tyr, go and get the Sword of Justice. I don't need it for any of these builds, so I'm not going to be doing that right now. And then down this little path here is a route that will take us towards Walkeen's Rest, and there's a little smuggler's ring in here. At this point, I am just walking along the Risen Road down by the river, going up what is effectively a ladder, and then keeping walking along the Risen Road up to the waypoint without coming across any enemies. And we have the possibility of getting the Circlet of Fire from here before we get into the Goblin camp.
Fresh air.
After saving the people inside the burning building, you'll get this conversation. I would say we should see this through. You have my word. And then we get a choice of 2 items. A shield, of which nobody's going to be wearing a shield, although Shadowheart could. But more importantly, we want these Circlets of Fire. When you deal fire damage with a non-cantrip spell, gain a bonus action. And at this point, you can go and rejoin your party again. While we're here, we can actually pick up a good set of leather armor, faded trout leather armor. I have broken into Draw Ragslin's treasure room. Literally, the door can just be knocked down. Using a flaming sword is pretty good at it, actually. And then in this chest here, we will find the Helmet of Grit. It is also possible to find the Circlet of Fire in here. It seems like there's only one copy in the game. You either get it inside this room or from saving people inside the burning building at Walkeen's Rest. I'm also going to pick up the Viatar's Love, and also I will pick up the Ritual Dagger, which will be very useful, actually. One of the downsides to these builds is that they require quite a lot of items, and a few of them come from the Underdark. So we're not going to be able to use these builds throughout the whole game. So I just want to see how well it fares, the Wizard Wield fares above ground, because I have got the Circlet of Fire, which is perhaps the most important item. These guys are pretty weak. They're not going to survive no matter what we do. To help ourselves out, I'm going to cast Bless. Now the Circlet of Fire gives an extra bonus action after dealing damage with a non-cantrip fire spell. So we've got 1 bonus action there. I'm going to use Burning Hands. Hopefully it won't kill all of them, so I can show this off. And then the offhand attack, I've equipped the Flame Blade in the offhand. 85% chance to hit, which is nice. We don't get any bonuses to the fire damage because I don't have any of the extra items. But now I should hopefully be able to take out... Oh, there's a miss. Well, you know, that's just the nature of the game. So this works out quite nicely. To get that bonus action every single turn, the wizard has to cast a 1st level spell every single turn dealing fire damage. Now, unfortunately, I've gone into this fight with only 1 level 2 spell slot left. So the wizard, once we're out of spell slots in a battle, cannot take advantage of the Circlet of Fire. Thankfully, this guy's got a fairly low armor class, even with mage armor. So we've got a fairly decent chance to hit and finish them off. So that wasn't so bad, but those guys weren't particularly dangerous. That's just kind of a proof of concept. I also want to point out, since we're here, if you fail to crush the tadpole and you pause it immediately after you get back in game, you can see the tadpole trying to run away. You can go and kill it. You get 10 experience, it's nothing great. So we are at level 4 with the wizards. I've been told that we should pick cantrips that we can't normally find on scrolls. I've already got Firebolt, so I'm not going to pick that. I've already got Shocking Grasp also. I'm going to end up going with Light. I want something without concentration, perhaps with a little bit of other use. As for spells, trying to find spells that aren't on scrolls. It's not that we don't have Misty Step scrolls or Scorching Ray scrolls, it's just I'm at the point where I don't have any, and I really want these spells anyway. As for the ability score improvement of feat, quite simply just +2 to intelligence to make intelligence up to 18. The warlock has now got to level 4. There was no word about what cantrip to choose. I'm going to go with Minor Illusion because nobody else in the party has it. For spells, Misty Step or Shatter. I'm really torn between both of these. I love both of them. I'm going to go with Shatter in the end because there aren't so many AoEs in my party at the moment. Then for the ability score improvement or for the feats, we're just going for Charisma +2. So once follows I status added to this, the Charisma will be 20. So here we are, Charisma at 20. Also want to point out, if you can equip your imp with a weapon, you can cast light on that weapon and your imp is now your light source. Here is the druid at level 4. we get to pick a cantrip. I'm going to go with Produce Flame. I don't think it matters here what cantrip we choose. And for the feat or ability score, very simply, Wisdom +2 up to 18, because it affects almost everything that this class does and this build does. I've got the Warlock here with all the items equipped on him. So I've got the Circlet of Fire, I've got studded leather armor +1, though that doesn't affect the damage. Gloves of Flint and Steel, Illmater's Aids, the poison resistance isn't needed necessarily, the Ring of Fire, the Ritual Dagger, and the Flame Blade in the offhand. And I'm going to be testing this against Auntie Ethel, wherever she's gone. There she is. One, not exactly a downside, but one thing to keep in mind is that to be able to use the Flame Sword on the same turn as Scorching Ray, you need to be close enough to actually get to her. So I'm going to start combat. Now this will partially depend on the initiative order. Very lucky there. I've already got a very low number of hit points to make sure Illmater's Aid works. The main idea with the Warlock is that you will use Scorching Ray as your action. This will give you an extra bonus action. Then we run up to the enemy and then use our offhand attack twice. For the Warlock that uses the spell scroll for Flaming Blade, this isn't supposed to be used every fight. You should just be using this with more difficult enemies. So let's go with this. So we've got a bit of extra damage there because of Illmater's Aid. Right, that's the extra force damage. So we've done that. And then we get 2 offhand attacks. We're getting extra 1 damage from the Ring of Fire. And there is a chance, because of the Gloves of Flint and Steel, that we do some extra damage. So almost all of that 60 damage was done from the Warlock, just a tiny bit from the Wizard. But for the next round, let's just try and make sure we have an even better chance. Unfortunately, I had already cast Armor of Agathis this short rest, and I used Scorching Ray. The Warlock now cannot cast another non-cantrip fire spell, without using a scroll maybe. So it is limited to maybe 2 turns in combat, plus any scrolls that you have. Now it's not all bad, because the offhand attack is still strong. It will not kill her or finish her off. There we are, another 8 damage done. The one great thing about the Warlock is, even without Flame Blade, it's still a very decent character to have. We've got the very strong Eldritch Blast there with a Repelling Blast. I've got the Sapphire Spark here, so the Wizard should hopefully finish her off. If you didn't know, Sapphire Spark adds 1d4 psychic damage to every magic missile cast. I would say now that Auntie Ethel is dead, and we've used up both spell slots, Flame Blade isn't going to come into the battle as much as it did with Auntie Ethel herself. Also, the Warlock is at risk of dying, or being knocked unconscious with only 11 hit points left. So I'd probably keep the Warlock just using Eldritch Blast for most of the rest of this battle. I have now equipped the Wizard, as I have been instructed to. Something I realised I forgot with the Warlock is I didn't add Crusher's Ring. It didn't come up against Auntie Ethel, but I've got it on the Wizard now just in case. The necklace is the Sapphire Spark still, rather than Illmater's Aid. Otherwise, I've transferred over the Circlet of Fire, Gloves of Flint and Steel, and the Ring of Fire, with the Short Sword of First Blood in the main hand and the Flame Blade in the offhand. Longbow +1, hopefully that doesn't come up. And to try and keep things kind of fair, just going to try against the same target, against Auntie Ethel. Keep it simple with the bow. Now let's see how initiative plays in our favour again. Right, so as before, we want to be using a first level spell slot to be casting a fire spell, or second level. It doesn't have to be first level. However, the only one I've got ready is Burning Hands. That's okay. I'm just going to use a first level spell slot. There's no need to use a second level, really. Going to set a few things on fire here, by the looks of it. Do a little bit of damage, a bit of 1 extra damage from the Ring of Fire. Then I can just stand here and use offhand attack. I've got a 70% chance to hit. Now the person who, one of the 3 builds, someone said that the Circlet of Fire doesn't work with Flame Blade attacks. They're not sure if that's intentional, but if we read this here, it says when you deal fire damage with a non-cantrip spell, gain a bonus action. From that description, I could understand if people were to say, like, look, we're using Flame Blade, we should get an extra bonus action when we deal damage with it. That could create an infinite chain of bonus actions, which is obviously overpowered. I wouldn't be surprised if what they meant by this is when you cast, I'm not sure, rather than deal fire damage, when you cast a spell that deals fire damage, so that you only get it on 1 casting. Anyway, we don't get an extra bonus action from Flame Blade, but we do get to do this. That's unlucky, that was a miss. Even with Bless on. So compared to the Warlock, that was a bit disappointing, but part of that is because I used a first level spell, Burning Hands rather than Scorching Ray. And the problem for the wizard is that if I did use Scorching Ray, I probably could have equipped that first. If I had used Scorching Ray, then that's one less time I can cast Flame Blade in the day. Now, if you really want to deal a lot of damage, you will want to have something that guarantees critical hits, and Exposing Bite from a druid is one of them. If this wizard had Scorching Ray ready, it'd be an automatic critical hit on each of the Scorching Rays. Unfortunately, that isn't what's happened here. That's my own fault. I'll see if I can do that later for the warlock. But I am going to use the offhand melee attack, make sure I get at least one in. Critical hit, and get 17 on 66. About average, to be honest. And just the Ring of Fire just deals 1 damage. Since no dice is rolled, we don't get to double the amount of damage done. Now, I need to cast a leveled spell. That isn't level 0. 3-1-1-1. And then I get a second offhand attack. This time, there's no automatic critical hit. Another 12 and 1. Ha, because she teleports. No opportunity attacks. She's got 1 hit point left. It is the druid's turn to try and see what he can do to Auntie Ethel. I've just reduced his number of hit points to below half, so the Helm of True Grit works. He's got 2 bonus actions. He doesn't need to cast any spells for that. And currently, the Helm of True Grit is pretty much bugged. I just took a short rest to restore hit points, and he still has 2 bonus actions. So this might be the easiest way to get 2 bonus actions currently, is using the Helm of Grit. But even if we do need to be below 50% hit points, that's not any worse than what the warlock has to do when he uses Ilmater's Aid, or if you want to use Leviathar's Glory. So I'd say that's okay. So here is the druid with all of the items in the build. We've got the Helmet of Grit, which helps give the extra bonus action, as well as Dexterity Saving Throws +1. We shouldn't forget that. Got the Gloves of Power on. He is branded, so if you hit someone, they have the chance to have Bane cast on them. There were 3 rings mentioned in the build. I've chosen the Ring of Fire and Crusher's Ring. The other ring mentioned was the Bracing Band, this one here. That gives +1 armor class if they use Shove on that action. However, I think the main idea is to be using the bonus action for Flame Blade, so that's why I've left that one out. I've got a club which I've cast Shillelagh on, and we've got Flame Blade there. And we've got the Boots of Speed if needed, but again, that uses a bonus action, and we've already got Crusher's Ring. So I'm going to start the fight. I haven't actually gotten in the fight yet. Let's try and use Thorn Whip, just because it brings her a bit closer. 3 out of 3 times, Auntie Ethel's going really late in the turn order. Dexterity's 14, it's decent enough. She gets a +2 bonus, just like most of my characters do. So now, we've got an action, 2 bonus actions. We don't need to use any specific spell at the beginning to get the bonus action. I'm not going to be able to have Bless because Shadowheart's going later. Also, I can't cast Fairy Fire because then I lose concentration on Flame Blade. I'm going to start with Shillelagh. Bonk on the head. And then we will have 2 offhand attacks. Same chance to hit. That's quite unfortunate. I haven't hit with either of those 2 attacks. 60% chances. I'm not particularly happy actually when I see 60%. In all fairness, armor class is 15, which is starting to get on the high side. His attack bonus is +6. That's about as good as we can mostly get, unless you're the warlock with 20 charisma. Because the wisdom is at 18 and all the attacks are using wisdom as the ability for the attack rolls and damage rolls. I could use smash. Why not? Then, now we have an 84% chance to hit. Critical hit, 12 damage, slightly disappointing. And then 10 damage on a normal hit. Yeah, you win some, you lose some. 11 on 66. I've rolled an average basically of 2 on all 6 dice there. Because that should be a lovely amount of damage. That is just unlucky. So after 2 turns, it's doing okay. Oh, she's already running away. That's a bit disappointing. Now, one positive for the druid in particular is that with this helmet, we always get 2 bonus actions. We're not relying on a leveled fire spell to get the extra bonus actions. Because of the circle, we can cast Mirror Image, which should help stop him being hit, which will then prevent concentration checks. One thing I've noticed with Mirror Image is if you're standing next to an object and cast it, we also get the mirror image of any objects nearby as well, which is why all this is turned up here. So we've used the action, but we've still got 2 bonus actions. Now the red caps with a lower armor class than before, than the Auntie Ethel. I know I'm being a little bit unlucky, but when I'm rolling for damage and I get 3d6, this isn't the first time, 6, 8, 9. It's not actually that high. I'm getting the +1, which is good. I don't have the gloves of flint and steel, so I'm not getting the extra damage there. And I'll come back to that low damage later in the video. I'm at the Githyanki Patrol. I have prepared the warlock. I've got all the same items on as before. I've also prepared Armour of Agathis, and I cast Hex on the imp and killed the imp, and then took a short rest, so I've got 2 spell slots to use up. I'm not going to reduce my number of hit points for Ilmater's aid here, because this is a particularly dangerous fight, and if I start off with only 18 or fewer hit points, I'm going to die in 1 hit. So I'm going to get the druid to use a potion of speed to get 2 actions. So I can wild shape into wolf. Now the main reason for all this is to try and show you if we use exposing bite. Critical hit itself. Then come to the warlock. Since we are within 5 feet of the enemy, even though it's a ranged attack, we get an automatic critical hit, and all 3 of these scorching rays will crit. Let's just get the damage open and ready. 20, 16, 17. Plus some extra damage from the ring, and she failed a couple of constitution saving throws, I guess. So this was set up particularly nicely with the automatic critical hit. And now, hopefully, at least one of these attacks will hit. Bless is a good thing to use here because it helps with saving throws, and there might be a constitution saving throw to keep concentration. And there we are. Took down Sarthbreath. It took a lot of setup, but I think the point of these builds is to try and burst down an enemy, and Sarthbreath has 91 hit points. Isn't the highest, the bullet has higher, but it's one of the highest number of hit points we could come across in early access currently. So we've got one more chance to use Scorching Ray. Unfortunately,
nothing will stand in my way.
We can only use Exposing Bite once per short rest. So we'll try and cast Fairy Fire. Got advantage on one of them. It didn't really matter which one, but I wanted to get advantage on one of them. And we've already got an extra bonus action, and I think that's because you cast Hellish Rebuke during the last turn. Oh, nice whole bunch of damage there from the combination of the ring and the braces. Same again there. It's not like huge amounts of damage, but it does add up when we have all these items focusing on fire damage. And they're half dead. Just did 40 hit points of damage. Now this time, so I'm going to use Scorching Ray. That was abysmal damage. 2 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2. Alright, but I've got the bonus action. 2 extra bonus action. So we can step back up and finish this guy off. So as with Auntie Ethel, now that the warlock is out of spell slots, I'm not going to get an extra bonus action, which is a bit sad. So this might be the time to actually switch to Hex rather than use Flame Blade, because that will help the warlock do more damage. So I'd say the warlock here has done particularly well because of the guaranteed critical hit, Scorching Ray, which is the automatic critical hits, and Flame Blade did its job. So same as before, you're going to cast Fire Spell. Everyone's highlighted here. I don't know if it will actually hit the Githyanki at the bottom of the screen. Oh, it does. Nice. So we do a bit of AoE damage. Not a huge amount, but everyone's a bit hurt. And now we've got 2 bonus actions with which we have advantage on the attack. We may as well go for Sarthbreath. Ooh, that's unlucky. And there's that damage of 9 again. So I find it slightly frustrating that we can get very low damages on the Flaming Sword. And it seems to be happening fairly often. 8 isn't really that much. 9 isn't that much. Part of me sometimes feels like I'd much rather have a fighter with a great sword, maybe the Sword of Justice, and a battle master, where the minimum amount of damage is probably 7 or 8, especially if we have great weapon fighting. So now we can get Wizstaff to come up to here. So we're going to try and use Exposing Bite. I would suggest if you're in this situation, do not use Burning Hands first, because that takes away the Exposing Bite status. I had to reload because of that. So the guaranteed critical hit, that's much better. So 24 damage on 66, it's definitely higher than average. Then a whole bunch of other damage coming from the ring and the braces there. It seems to roll several times for the braces, which is nice for us. And now Exposing Bite has gone. We can use Burning Hands again. Not again, but we can use Burning Hands to get an extra bonus action. To use with the offhand attack. I used a level 2 spell slot, maybe I shouldn't have done that. We nearly killed Sarthbreath there. So I'd say here, in terms of burst potential, I think the warlock is going to win it, even before I show you the druid, because Scorching Ray is really good, and the items we're wearing will actually make those items work multiple times in the same turn. Just as with the wizard, I've got the druid set up, and I'm going to cast mirror image before we go in. Alright, the initiative is much better this time. Unfortunately, the druid has lost its extra bonus action, which is a massive shame here. And unfortunately, without the helmet currently in effect, I'm only going to get one extra attack. So all I can really do at the moment is just attempt to attack. So I should use the offhand attack first. Critical hit, that's what we want. 30. 30 on 66 isn't very likely either. I've rolled a 5 or a 6, well, an average of 5 on every single dice there. But unfortunately, like before, I don't have this extra bonus action because my health isn't low enough. So I'm just going to attack. Thankfully, with mirror image, armor class is very high, so we don't even have to roll constitution saving throws. I'm just going to hit twice. Ooh, and Bane. That's good. One of the benefits of having the gloves of power. So we still don't have few enough hit points. And 2 misses. I mean, the armor class is fairly high, so the chance to hit is low. Out of those 3 battles, or partial battles, I think it's easy to say that the warlock and wizards in particular, if we're talking about bursting people down with extra damage, they're probably going to be better because their actions can be used to cast spells that do more damage than just shillelagh. Also, while the druid's helmet isn't bugged, isn't working as we might want it to with only 1 bonus action, it's not so great. If it is working, then it is great. So the warlock probably has the highest burst potential over maybe 2 rounds because Scorching Ray is such a great spell because it attacks 3 times and can proc both of the braces and the ring. However, once those 2 rounds are up, we cannot use fire damage so reliably, but we've still got Eldritch Blast. The wizard can keep the bonus actions going for longer because the wizard gets all these spell slots to use on maybe Burning Hands or even Scorching Ray if I prepared that, and then can also do a decent amount of damage with the Flame Blade with the same items equipped as the warlock. Whereas the druid, no extra way of increasing number of bonus actions because they don't have a fire spell that's 1st or 2nd level, I don't think. Let's just double check, make sure I'm not wrong. So no fire spells there. The only fire spell here is Flaming Sphere, but that's also concentration, and I don't even know if that works with the helmet. 2 things kind of irk me about this build using Flame Blade. One is if we lose concentration during the battle, which I haven't done so very much. Part of that's to do with mirror image. If we do lose concentration and we cast Flame Blade again in the battle, it automatically goes into the main hand, and then I've just unequipped it. But you need to spend an action to get it into the offhand again, which is basically the purpose of all 3 builds really want to have the Flame Blade on the offhand. If you lose concentration and recast it in a battle, it uses up your action and bonus action. That's that turn used up. And the second thing is, although the critical hits are great, they're great on many builds, critical hits, and since it's a straight 3d6 roll, there is always a chance we're going to do appalling damage or mediocre damage that I don't really care for. Like anything that's 7, 8, 9, 10 damage on a level 2 spell that we have to concentrate on and have all these items to make work. That's slightly annoying. I wish it just did a bit of extra damage because any fighter with a good weapon and a decent, half-decent strength score, or even using a potion of Hill Giant strength, probably deals more consistent damage than the Flame Blade without having the chance of losing concentration. Now, although the Warlock has the best burst potential, to use this build on the Warlock, you need the scrolls. And it took me maybe 2 or 3 long rests to refresh the Flameblade scrolls in the Druid's camp and also with Roa Moonglow in the Shattered Sanctum. I personally can't be bothered long resting and going to buy these scrolls all the time. I'm a bit torn on that. With the wizard, I personally don't really like using non-wizard spells on wizards, especially learning them. That's something I've never done in any of my live streams and in my personal playthroughs, but this was the build sent in, so I thought I'd give it a go. And then with the druids, we have to have less than 50% hit points to be certain we're going to get 2 bonus actions. And the downside with the druid is that their action just isn't as strong as the wizards or warlocks. Now, overall, I'm not trying to say that they're bad builds or anything. I am impressed with their burst damage, their burst potential, but each of these each of these do have a downside. In my own personal opinion, some of you, I'm sure, would be perfectly happy just walking around to make sure you have enough scrolls, and all the more power to you if that's how you view it. And others of you really don't care about using non-wizard spells on a wizard, and again, that you would find this build a bit more useful. Overall, I think the most reliable build of these 3 is the warlock, in the sense that even if you don't have the flame blade, this is just like warlock I built with 20 charisma. It's got a very decent standard attack roll, so it's always going to be useful. Something I haven't really taken into account is all the other skills and spells that these particular classes get. I was just trying to look at the differences between them based on the flame blade. Since I had 3 builds given to me on the same video in the comments, you're all using a flame blade, all of them have used a different class, which has been very nice. So thank you to those of you who have sent a build in the comments. If any of you want to do that, please feel free, and I'll see if I can get around to making a video about it. Let me know what you think about each of these 3 builds, which one you think is maybe stronger or one you're more likely to use. If you've made it this far, please do consider subscribing, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.